Alright, I really don't like using a staker because it's just standing uncomfortably in one place for a long time. So I like to just make myself comfy by the fire. Lay it on my lap. It's a little wet, won't hurt nothing. Just branch, you can see here where it's really wet, right here where it's getting dry. You can see streaks right here. It'll get bigger as we work them. So there's a dry spot starting right there. Starting right there. Dry spot. It's almost opaque. And watch as I work this thing, every one of those spots gets bigger. So there's some more spots trying to get dry. This is a lot less tedious. It's not back breaking. If you want to take a break, you throw it in a little bag. Take a little break. See how it goes from way too wet to fairly dry in just a few stretches. That has a lot to do with sitting by this heater in a dry environment. Over there where I was working brains into it, there's still water on the floor. It's because the humidity is so high, it won't evaporate over there. But I'm within this circle around the fire of dry air. So that's really helping to dry this hide out. On a day like this is really not the best time to be trying to stretch a hide dry. Doing your edges. Pull out several times, right side by side by side, and then pull those apart. You'll see it makes instant difference. You go around the whole outside edge like that. Look at how it just, you can see where it's starting to dry right there. Alright, while I got you here, I'm going to tell you about braiding. When you start getting dry spots like this, what's happening is the glues are still trying to set up between the oil fibers. And the skin itself will actually get a sort of layer of glue on both sides on the outside. And that's supposed to be like a self-defense mechanism to keep the skin from being attacked. What we do is we take a piece of pumice, and rub all over it just to break those glues up around the outside. And now you'll see that as we stretch it, those places get even drier. More bounce is going to come into your skin this way. Now this is pumice that I bought at the pharmacy uptown or the dollar store or something. That's what ladies scrub their feet with to get the bunions off. And this is a piece of sandstone. This was a big boulder I found under a waterfall, and it fits the shape of my hand pretty much just like I like it. Works good in a frame. You just push it against the skin and rub. Or when you got a skin stretched over your legs. Really dig in with it. Also has that neat little lip right there, which is handy for working edges. so you don't wear your fingers out, because this stuff is abrasive. You can sharpen a knife with this stuff. That's leather, so it will wear the skin off. If you sit here and keep pulling with your fingers this way all day, you're gonna have sore fingers. Either use something else or use your fingers flat together like this when you're pulling that hide. See that? Right off the end of it. When you get to a hole, you need to pull everything towards the hole. And pull around the hole. And the hole, except for the very inside edge of it, will soften. Cut that out, sew it up, and it'll almost disappear. But I don't mind them being in there really, myself. But if you were going to sew up any hides, now would be the time to do it before it's dry. You would take this thing, basically roll up everywhere that didn't have a hole in it, so it won't dry out. You cut around the hole. This is a tick mark. We're not going to try to get it out, but we cut it to make it regular, and you would fold it inside on itself, something like that, and you would sew it inside right there. And as you stretch this thing and the fibers realign, it lays pretty flat. This is probably just going to be cut up for a vest, a hunting vest for my dad or something. There's just no telling what I'll do with it. So when I decide whether or not it matters or not about the holes, I'll do something about the holes. But alright, I guess that's enough for now. You can see how this is drying. Just keep pulling in different directions. It'll get bigger and bigger. If it acts like it wants to quit stretching, take your pumice or sandstone, bump it a little. You're not going to get a lot out of buffing right this minute, because the hide is still more or less wet. When this thing is almost completely dry and you buff it, it raises the nap on it just like chamois. And since I got this camera, I'm going to take you all the way through this process. So I'm going to stretch a little while longer. Stay tuned. I'm really starting to get some dry spots in it now, so I thought I'd come back and show you how this thing's transforming. See, that spot's almost dry. I mean, it already feels almost like buckskin, just a little wet. This is a hide that's getting to the almost dry enough stage. And I've only been out here at this for, I don't know what, maybe an hour and a half. So not long. Has a lot to do with the environment. I had to put them up overnight and pick them back up the next day. So Sometimes they dry on out, sometimes they don't. I know you can't feel this, but this is, just look at the stretch and the bounce on that. This is a thin spot. Look at that bounce. It just goes right back. I've just been pulling it. It's gotten dry. A lot of the thick part's still wet. It's still got late. So I don't know if I'm gonna finish this tonight. It might be a re-smoking project. But I don't know if you can see that texture. Alright, we went through the whole night. I wrapped it up in a bag. It got too late. I couldn't finish the hide last night. I had to go to sleep. What I'm doing this morning is finishing stretching. Some of it's getting a little stiff in the middle, so I had to break it back over my staker. Break it back open and get some stretching. And what I did was I was working around the edges, came to this spot right here, which is kind of the elbow of the deer. Apparently this deer has some pretty rough territory to go through. You see there's some scar tissue. And this stuff really don't soften well. So what I'm doing is running my hand over it. I use this tool to find any stiff spots. And I just grab those spots, pinch them in the skin. Use my feet to hold the hide down. Stretch. Kind of hard to do with one hand, but you get the idea. You want to run your hand over the grain side and the membrane side of the whole hide. Anytime you find a stiff spot where it feels bristly on the top, there's a spot. Pull that over your leg. Run over it with your pumice. Now all the bristly's gone and you can see that texture. That just turns super soft. There's a little bit right there. Turns super soft. And the stretch comes back into it immediately. And like I said before, what happens is the skin still tries to protect itself. It's a defense mechanism for the glues to set up on the outside. All these fibers are oiled amongst each other on the inside. And if you leave this hide still, it'll still try to set up and be hard, like rawhide. But by getting this layer of glue, breaking it up off the surface, we allow the hide to be stretchy again. If you find a spot like that on one side, it's best to flip it on over. Check the other side. See, it's a little bristly right there on the bottom side. The membrane side is actually pretty good, flesh side. Feels a little stiff right in there. So we're going to hit that. And the stretch almost immediately comes back. Alright, what happened is either overnight it dried enough in the bag that the center of the hide is more like rawhide. In other words, the glues have set up, I can keep the fibers moving on one another. But you can see how it's stiff in some places. Some places it's just soft and rolls, stretchy. But these places here don't stretch. So it's against my better judgment, but I'm gonna rebrain this now. Sit by the fire. I got a fire going, just started. It'll be warm enough in here in a few minutes that I should be able to get this thing worked dry. If I can get it back wet without wetting the parts that are already dry. That's going to be the thing. If you wet these, the brain washes back out and you're basically starting over. If rebraining now does not get this soft, we're going to smoke it. Then we're going to rebrain it and smoke it one more time.